Hey loves, I'm Keely and welcome back to my kitchen. Today is a very special episode because we are talking Mother's Day. I know that this year may look really different for a lot of families, so I tried to think of the one thing that tastes like love. And to me, that is cinnamon rolls. I make these rolls for my family for almost every single holiday, especially Mother's Day. So for me, that is what these represent. These rolls are love. And I would love nothing more than if making these rolls became a family tradition for you as well. I'm going to be walking you through step by step how to make traditional cinnamon rolls that are filled with cinnamon and sugar, but then I'm also going to show you how to take that exact same dough and turn it into a celebration of spring filled with lemons and lilac syrup. And then lastly, I have a surprise, so make sure you stick around for how you can turn these cinnamon rolls into a beautiful gift or centerpiece for your loved ones. I've been making this recipe for years and years and years, and it is from the amazing Drummond. I simply updated it with the lilac syrup, and I also just wanted to show you step-by-step instructions because making cinnamon rolls for the first time can be pretty intimidating. And over the years, I've also have found several tips and tricks that I wanted to share with you today. All right, ready to get rolling? Well, first, I would love if you could please subscribe to my channel right now, and then also make sure that you press the bell below so that you get notified every time that there is a new episode every single Sunday. Now what should we do, Josh?
We're gonna make like Ludacris and roll out some cinnamon rolls.
Let's go. Let's talk ingredients. We begin by adding 2 cups of whole milk, half a cup of vegetable oil, and then half a cup of sugar to a medium-sized pot. We now set the temperature to medium-low because we are simply creating hot milk here. You're gonna know that it's hot when you see bubbles on the sides, and then you're gonna remove it from the heat. We're gonna let the milk cool down for about 20 minutes or so off the heat, just until the sides of the pan no longer feel super hot when you touch them. Now, the next stage is to sprinkle 1 package of active dry yeast or 2 1/4 teaspoons if you have yeast in bulk. Simply let it sit for 1 minute and let the yeast fully activate. If you're nervous about using yeast or you want to learn more about doughs, be sure to check out my other video on making your very own pizza dough because I've given plenty of information about yeast here. All right, our minute is up, so it's time to give the yeast and the milk a stir. Then add 4 cups of all-purpose flour and stir until everything is just combined. It's gonna look like a wet, sticky dough, and that is perfect. Cover the pot with a clean towel, not the one that you used to wipe up the milk that you had spilled on the floor earlier. We want a clean one, and let that sit for 1 hour. After that time, it's going to look double in size, very fluffy, and still very sticky. If for some reason it's really cold in your kitchen, let the pot sit on top of your oven that is turned on just for extra heat. This is going to help the yeast activate and help everything rise a little bit better. So after your dough is fluffy and activated, it's time to add in our final ingredients. Half a teaspoon of baking powder, a little less than half a teaspoon of baking soda, and then 1 tablespoon of salt. And then finally, half a cup of all-purpose flour. Stir these together until everything is combined and you don't see any dry patches, and then check the bottom of your pot to make sure there aren't any dry patches there as well. Your dough's now done. It's time now to split the dough in half. Put half the dough in 1 clean bowl and then add the zest of 1 lemon to the remaining dough. Put this lemon dough in another clean bowl and cover both of them tightly with plastic wrap. Make sure that you write the flavor on top of the roll so that you don't confuse yourself. I find it most helpful to chill these overnight so that the gluten relaxes, the dough isn't as sticky, and the rolls just come out much more evenly. If you don't have that kind of time, no sweat. Simply chill them for about 10 minutes and then get rolling. This is what my dough looked like after sitting for 24 hours. It's going to look a bit more puffed up, and that is a good thing. I started with my regular cinnamon dough. Let the dough sit out for about 10 to 15 minutes just to warm up a little bit while you prep everything you need to get ready. Start by melting 1 stick of butter and pouring half of it onto your baking vessel. I decided to use a cast iron skillet, but you can use any baking dish you have as long as it has edges to keep everything in. Next, I like to use 1 cup measure filled with all-purpose flour, so it's just ready when I need it. And then I got a half a cup of sugar and then the cinnamon ready. And then finally your rolling pin. To roll out the dough, be sure to flour your work surface since this is a very sticky dough. Then plop around to the flour, add another layer of flour, and then form it into a rectangle with your hands. I just find this step to make the process easier of rolling out the dough, since you're giving the dough some direction instead of just rolling it out all willy-nilly. Top with a bit more flour, put your rolling pin in the very center, and then roll to the right. Bring it back to the center, and then roll to the left. Keep doing this motion until your dough is becoming very thin in a very long rectangle. I know my dough is ready when it is as thin as it can go without being see-through thin. Remember, it's still getting topped with butter and other toppings, so you want to make sure that your dough will stand up to that weight. I then pull the corners out a little bit just so that everything is an even rectangle. But don't worry, it's not going to be perfect. Now it's time to get messy, people. Drizzle your remaining butter over the top of the dough. Let it flow, baby, because that means that moisture and that fat is getting inside the dough. And no one likes a dry cinnamon roll. I know you've had one. They just suck. So now you can use a pastry brush or even your hands to just spread out the butter. I normally just use my hands. Next, we will sprinkle on the sugar, about 1/4 cup, but don't worry about measurements here. You just want to have an even layer of sugar. And then finish it off with a dusting of cinnamon. Ready to roll? Start at the top left corner of your dough and fold it over about 1/2 inch, and keep going until you have reached the right side. Keep going with this process of rolling tightly until you are left with one long log of dough. Pinch the end of the dough to the bottom of the log so that everything stays in place, and then put the seam on the bottom. Now it's time to cut. The size of the rolls is really a personal decision. I normally make big rolls by cutting them 1 inch or so, but I made slightly smaller ones today just so that they could fit in my skillet. Once your rolls are cut, place them next to one another on your baking tin and then cover with a clean towel to proof for about 30 minutes. Are you ready for the surprise? So I thought, why not just take a cinnamon roll and bake it in a coffee mug? There's nothing cuter than that. Nothing. Well, I got this idea because when I was a pastry chef, my favorite thing to do was not come up with these elaborate new designs or anything like that. I loved just taking comforting, amazing food that people loved and just presenting it in a different way, in a way that made them feel special and in a way that made them just stop, notice how beautiful everything was, and just enjoy. So if you want to make these cinnamon roll coffee mugs, and why wouldn't you? They are so freaking cute. Make sure that you first begin with an oven-safe mug. So if you look at the bottom of the mug, it will say if it's oven-safe or not. But if you have any questions, be sure to contact the company you purchased your mug from. Here's what you do. Add 1 tablespoon of butter to an oven-safe mug, and then slowly tilt it back and forth so that the butter rises up about 1 inch or so, and we're doing this so that the cinnamon roll does not stick too much to the mug. Then when your rolls are cut, add 1 roll, swirl side up into the cup. Put a towel on top and let it proof for about 12 minutes or so. Then put the mug into a cold oven in the middle rack. Now, if we put the mug inside a hot oven, this might cause the mug to crack, and we do not want that. Now that it's inside of a cold oven, set the oven temperature to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, and the mug will slowly warm up with the oven to ensure that the mug does not break. Easy, right? Here's how you make your other cinnamon rolls along with the mug rolls. Once you hear that your oven has preheated, simply open your oven and put your rolls on the top shelf to bake. Both the regular rolls and the mug rolls will take about 25 minutes to bake, possibly longer, since we're using a lower oven temperature. And you will know when your rolls are done when they are deep golden brown and your kitchen smells like absolute paradise. When the rolls are golden brown, turn the oven off and then prop it open only a few inches or so. We want the oven to slowly cool down to protect the mugs. You can remove the big batch of rolls that are cooked, but you want to make sure that you leave that mug inside just so that it slowly cools down, and then you can remove it once it feels only slightly warm to the touch. Now let's make those lemon lilac rolls I was telling you about. First, be sure to clean up your station with soap and water so that there are no traces of cinnamon left, because that would be gross. Melt another stick of butter, and then add half of that butter into the baking dish. Then prep your flour and your fillings. So the night before, I made lilac syrup. This is basically a simple syrup, and what that means is that you're combining 1 cup of sugar with 1 cup of water. We're going to let this come to a full boil, and then once it comes to a boil, we're going to reduce it down to medium-low, and we're going to let this cook until the sugar is completely dissolved. You'll know that you've reached this stage when you can no longer see the sugar. It will look completely clear. At this stage, you are going to add 1 cup of lilac flowers, which you've cleaned hopefully because we don't want any ants in here. Then add the juice of 1 lemon along with the peels, and then 5 blueberries. They could be fresh or frozen. We're going to simmer this for 5 minutes, and after it simmers, the flowers are going to be wilted, the color is going to be a deep purple, and it's going to smell beautifully fragrant. All you have to do now is just strain the liquid, pop her into the fridge, and of course, make sure you cover it first. And then you can use it for anything you want. I think this would be so beautiful in a fruity cocktail or even a fun twist in a lemonade. Getting back to the rolls now. You are going to roll out these rolls the same way that you did last time. The differences will come when it comes time to add the fillings. It will be most helpful to pour out some of that lilac syrup into a smaller jar or bowl and then use a pastry brush to spread everything evenly over the dough. We are adding the syrup first so that those flavors will really get soaked into the dough. Then we'll spread out the butter the same way we did last time, and then after this, we're going to make some lemon sugar. We're going to do this by adding the zest of 1 lemon to half a cup of sugar and stir it with a fork. Top this lemon sugar on top of the melted butter for that incredible flavoring. And then that's it. We'll roll them just like we did before, cut them and place them into the butter dishes, and then with the pastry brush, top them with a little bit more of that lilac syrup. And this is the really cool part. After they bake, you're going to see this really gorgeous crystallization on the top because of that added sugar from the syrup that we used. The last thing we need to do is make our icing, and it is a breeze. You will need 1 medium-sized bowl and then 2 smaller bowls for the icing itself. In the medium-sized bowl, sift half a bag of powdered sugar so that we don't have any lumps in our icing. Trust me, they ain't pretty. Pour that evenly into the 2 bowls that you have ready, and then melt half a stick of butter and evenly distribute this butter into the 2 icing bowls. Now choose 1 bowl to be your regular icing. We're going to start with that one first. Add 1 tablespoon of brewed coffee, a dash of kosher salt, dash of vanilla, and a dash of maple extract if you happen to have it. If you don't, maple syrup also is a great substitute. I am pretty picky when it comes to this icing because I want it thick enough to stand out on top of the cinnamon rolls, but not so thick that it isn't spreadable. So I ended up adding 1 tablespoon of milk just to thin it out, but this is also based on your own preference. You also need to taste it. Does it need anything? Maybe a dash more salt? Do you like it with a little bit more vanilla? Really make this your own. Then it's time for the lemon lilac icing. Add 4 tablespoons of lilac syrup, the zest of half a lemon, a dash of kosher salt, and a dash of vanilla. Is it too runny because of the syrup? No worries. Simply add a tablespoon or more of powdered sugar until it's the consistency that you like. And then also remember to taste it. Feel free to add more of that lemon zest or more of that syrup based off of what flavors you like best. Whenever possible, I try to let my family or my guests, whoever it may be, I try to let them add the icing onto the rolls themselves because everyone likes a different sweetness level. Like for example, I don't like a whole lot of icing. I'd rather just have the roll, but someone like my sister would just bathe in that icing. So I thought, what a beautiful presentation to just have a cinnamon roll buffet. This would be my dream scenario. Whoever that lucky lady is in your life that you are celebrating, I hope you decide to stuff her face with carbs and butter with these cinnamon rolls. They taste like love, they feel like love, they are absolutely beautiful. I mean, I probably should have just named my YouTube channel Butter and Carbs, but whatever. And that's it. I truly hope that these variations have inspired you to make your very own cinnamon rolls from scratch. And here's the beautiful thing about this dough. You can honestly fill it with absolutely anything. You can make them sweet like I did, or you can make them seasonal. You can fill them with savory fillings like ham and cheese, or use pizza sauce and then fill them with pepperonis, or even your leftovers that have just been sitting in the fridge. I won't judge. I hope that you comment below and let me know because I would love to hear from you. I would also love if you could please subscribe and then make sure that you click that bell below in case you haven't already. Well, until next time, my loves, just keep living life from scratch with a whole lot of love. Bye.